But I just want to sound a word of caution that the Minister for Finance and the government are walking a very dangerous path. The cosmetics would eventually not just hurt the economy, but it will collapse the economy. No serious investor listening to the Minister for Finance will have confidence in what he said. And I don't know where they get those their maths from. Your current revenues and expenditure that was approved, you said will give you a deficit of 7.4%. You said you are cutting 20% of the budget for an appropriation of 145 billion. That gives you 29 billion Ghana cedis. You further say that you are going to cut non-discretionary expenditure by 10%. So the non-discretionary expenditures would mean infrastructure, which is 16 billion in the budget, plus the goods and services, which is 6 billion in the budget. The two put together gives you how much? 22 billion. And you are cutting 10% of that. That is 2.2 billion. If I add 2.2 billion to the 29 billion, which is the 20%, I get 31.2 billion. Your entire deficit is 37 billion. And that gave you 7.4. Yet when you cut off 31 billion of that 37 billion, you still get a deficit of 7.4. You understand what I'm saying?
Voodoo.
This is voodoo accounting. You cutting your expenditure by 31 billion out of a deficit of 37 billion, and you still get the same deficit of 7.4. Then in addition to that, you say you are increasing the revenue, but still your deficit will be 7.4. Quite clearly, these financial engineers thought that we didn't go to school. So we can't see voodoo and we can't see fraud when we find one. Two, I want you to go to the budget data, okay? Appendix 3.8, Summary of Central Government Operations. And this, you find it under page 232. Under page 232, they give you details of foreign financing of the budget. And the foreign financing of the budget, the total borrowing is about 12 billion. 7 billion of that is coming from project loans. That is not the 2 billion he's talking about. What he's talking about is what we call the sovereign. So you have the euro bonds, term loans, green bonds, whatever they call them. All that put together is about 4.5 billion Ghana cedis. If you divide 4.5 billion Ghana cedis by the exchange rate of 7.5, let me give you 7.5. You get $600 million as the only foreign financing of the budget that the so-called 2 billion is allowed. So he's taking an additional $1.4 billion, technically telling you that after all that I told you, I'm going to increase my deficit by how much? $1.4 billion. Because that $1.4 billion is not accounted for in your fiscal framework. So you are cutting expenditure, and yet your deficit remains the same. You are borrowing more by 1.4 billion. You still want us to believe that even though that was not part of the original deficit, your deficit remains the same. Ken Ofori, Atta, we are tired of these numbers that you are cooking. And the investor community is very smart. He keeps blaming COVID and everybody. And Ukraine, Russia, and what have you. When he came to Parliament on the 17th of November, after he read the budget, the investor community gave a response. They moved away from the yield on our euro bonds from 11% to 15%. So Ghana lost market access on the very day he read the budget. It had nothing to do with future agitations over e-levy. E-levy agitation came several weeks later, by which time we had already lost market access. We had been declared a country at risk of debt distress for 3 consecutive years. We didn't have e-levy. So the mismanagement of the economy. Let me tell you why they are going to borrow this $2 billion. It is not to provide forex. As we speak now, government interest payment that is due in the next couple of weeks is in excess of $1.6 billion. And if government does not find that $2 billion, we will default in the payment of our interest cost. So that is the one they are looking for. And they want to throw away this budget in order that they don't default. So the people who need the dollars to go back to their home country because they are reversing their portfolios, they are not the reasons why he's looking for the dollars. The market women and men who need the money to import their things and to pay for their letters of credit, they are not the ones he's looking for the $2 billion for. They are looking for the $2 billion because the overborrowing and the exposure of government to borrowing is bringing about external debt service in excess of $1.6 billion in the next couple of weeks. That is the level of the crisis. I know Dr. Baumia was waiting for this one and some phantom $2 billion so he can now open his mouth. We are waiting for him at the right time. Thank you very much. Yeah.